again, is not the programs. The problem isn't, is getting to the front line for sure, but the material cannot be a thesis or dissertation. It has to be, are you to the point where an elementary school person can really break it down, because we got these diverse learning strategies and backgrounds, for them to be able to absorb it and then apply it. And that's the problem. Like like you said, we're giving them this pencil and piece of paper and say, go forth and be great because you got a college degree. And they're like, you want me to go where? North, east, south, west? Am I going backwards? Am I going by myself? Am I catching a bus? Did you give me a Tesla? And we are assuming, especially our younger generation, because we were talking about the unemployment and underemployment and things like that, because there are programs designed in these colleges and in these schools, and we got all these frameworks, but it's the practical hands-on approach that's missing. And when we're thinking about the state of where we were to where we hope to go, but where we're currently, we have concerns. So when we're thinking about partnerships and collaborations, and you touched on this a lot, and we know cross-sector partnerships sounds great in theory, because like you said, and I think this is where, and I know as a nonprofit leader, this is where nonprofits fail, right? Because it's always got to be an NHIC in charge. And if we feel like, if we're the creator, the founder, the president, which you're not, because it don't belong to you anyway, you don't want to be subservient to somebody else. And now we get in this pissing match, right? And no one wins, especially the individuals you created this nonprofit for. But anyway, cross-sector collaboration is great in theory, but it often fails. And before I asked the question, I was telling an investor earlier, I said, listen, school systems need the help of the community, right? And the community wants to get in the building, but educational leaders only think about what's inside the building. That's all they can handle, right? And then the students aren't doing well. There's a funding issue. There's XYZ. And then the people on the outside, all they think of is the world on the outside, like corporate. And I said, there aren't enough businesses in the schools to help close the gaps for where there's a lack of funding. And there's a lack of understanding and education from the education leaders, how the business in the community can help them, right? Yeah. Where the first thing shouldn't be, well, we don't have money, so we can't have this conversation with you. So anyway, I wanted to put that out there to frame the question. How important are partnerships and collaboration in advancing community impact? And what have you learned about working across sectors that you can add to the discussion?
Yeah, I think it's so important. Grassroots coalition building is something that I specialize in. And I think that what we have to answer this question for everyone. What's in it for me, right? What's in it for them? And I think to solve that that tug of war on who has the mic and who's leading, we have to bring people to the table just around the topic and the solution first, so that we can understand where their value is and where it makes sense for them to lead and drive, and give them a piece of the mantle to own. I think, a lot of the time that I've spent leading Maryland Alliance for Justice Reform, which is one of the largest volunteer grassroots public policy organizations working to make communities safer and making sure that people have access to everything that they need. When we 1 year we got 17 our bills across the table, and there would be all these organizations. We're like the umbrella organization, and there's a whole bunch of other organizations that are like supporters of us in the justice reform space. And people who from the outside looking in, like, how are you all able to accomplish that? because we understand that people need to be in charge and we need to give them something to be in charge of. And we're happy to sit down at the table before we talk about who's in charge. We come together as a group to talk about, to gain alignment on the issue and the problem that we're trying to solve and the strategy that we want to accomplish and why it works. And we list out everything that needs to be accomplished. And there's the whole list of what needs to be accomplished and who's going to do it. And people grab what they naturally will do well. We don't like to assign because we want them to feel empowered to commit to taking it as what they feel like they should own, that's in alignment with their mission and vision. But here's the thing that we make very clear. If you own it, you're not just responsible for driving it. You're responsible for putting an investment, whether that's time, treasure, or talent. We don't dictate what you have access to, because there are organizations that are struggling for funding. If you don't have the funding, you have to put the time. If you don't have the time, you better send bodies that can mobilize on your behalf. But you can't just grab something just to say I'm the leader. You have to tell us what's the plan, how are you going to lead it. And you have this one organization that sits at the top that is literally like the traffic cop that has a 10,000 foot view and can see where this organization is struggling or where we need more help, or okay, funding is a problem. While you're trying to execute on that, let us go figure out where to go get the money. So it has to be, I go back to the term collective impact. People have to, the tenets of the success of collective impact is not only that partners are coming to the table, but they are themselves identifying how I can contribute, what I'm willing to invest, and the time I'm willing to give towards this mission. So when the assignments go out, it makes sense. Oftentimes I see a lot where there's partnership and collaboration, but there's no success because organizations are chewing off tasks that naturally shouldn't even fall with them by nature of what their mission and vision of the organ or financial coffers look like. You got a lot of people that are trying to grab at the task that's the most glamorous or has the most TV time. We have to get out of that mindset, and we have to realize that we're not doing this just so that we can have an accolade or pat on the back for solving the problem. These are lives. These are people's lives. And it goes back to what you said. There's a human that is waiting for this solution. And if we can just remove ourselves from the need of needing to be at the table, drive in the car and the driver's wheel. Hey, if you feel like you should be at the on the wheel, hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Bring the receipts, bring what you can do. Let's make those decisions based on past performance, execution, access, all of that. And then look, hey, if this time you're not driving, that's okay. Move over to the passenger seat. If somebody's sitting in it, don't get upset. Get in the back seat. Okay. And it's just like running for office. There's going to be a time. The Bible says there's a time for everything under the sun. Maybe the Lord said this ain't your time to drive, sister, but that don't mean that you're not going to be in the passenger side or the back seat, or maybe he wanted you in a different car altogether. You just couldn't, you weren't clear yet because you were just focused on this one thing when you didn't realize there was other ways to do the job. So we as people have to start with pulling that pride back and being just humble, coming to the table and saying, how can I help? And telling them how you can best be utilized. And retention is so important because I also see with cross collaboration, sometimes when people are doing really massive things like justice reform, where, oh my gosh, opening January, this legislative session is opening up the whole month of January. Everybody is riled up. We're at lobby day. Now it's time to testify for the bills. Now it's time to do the research. Now it's time to really roll up the sleeves and get down in the nitty gritty. And you look on, but what happened to all the people that were so, life caught up with them? And that's why we at Maryland Alliance for Justice Reform, we do not assign tasks. We ask you to pick up something you can commit to doing from start to finish. And please don't commit. And we never leave anybody on an assignment alone because life happens. And if life happens, hey, we need you to be healthy. And sometimes if something happened in the family, like a death of a loved one, or you had a baby, take care of you because the work is going to continue. We need you to be healthy and prosperous and get back on your feet. Do what you need to do and come back to the table. Because you know what? You had a co-pilot and you had two people sitting in the back seat. You weren't driving it alone. So as long as we can implement those tenets of success, and I'm talking about across any type of issue, it doesn't